Oh, look at it. That's a rejuvenated, refreshed Rany Jazayerli as he is back from vacation. If you're catching us via the podcast later, you can be a part of the conversation. Even see the smiling face of Rany Jazayerli on your screen as we usually record Sunday nights at 10 p.m. But because of Rany's travels, we're Monday night at 10 p.m. recording the Kaufman Corner podcast. And we'll be Monday night because of my travels next week, but usually on a Sunday night. Much to get to here. Brady Singer, as we record, his win has now gone down the toilet. He had a no-hit bid going. We'll talk about the performance he's put together tonight and the performance he's really put together since May. We'll talk about the fact that Ragans and Velazquez, two guys that came over in a trade, have performed well for the Royals. Ragans' last start, not so good, but not so bad either. We'll get into that. Is Rany ready to admit the front office has got it together? Is he ready to do an about face? I don't think so, but we'll talk about where the front office sits right now in his mind. Bobby Witt, contract time. Is it he continues to play better and better for the Royals? Is it time for them to find a way to get that done? Maybe we'll get into Salvi at first base. Maybe we'll get into Blake Mitchell. He seems to be able to walk. We know he can do that. Can he do anything else? We'll talk about it all right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to Kaufman Corner, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany and the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here's your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
And welcome as we get things rolling here, like I said, on a Monday. Rany Jazayerli, Soren Petro with you. Rany, how was your vacation? Let's start there real quick. Always good to check in and see how things were. You had a wonderful family vacation to Costa Rica. Is that correct?
I did. I would like to say that I'm tanned, rested, and ready after vacation to Costa Rica, but I'm not tanned because I am a dermatologist and I cover up like I suffer from skin cancer because I don't want to get skin cancer, and that's what I do. So I avoided the tan, and I can't say I'm rested because our flight was delayed getting in last night. I got home at about 2 a.m. So I'm running on fumes and coffee at the moment, but I am ready. At least I hope so. Are the Royals ready? Well, we're in the bottom of the ninth right now, and they are trying to salvage what would be an epic collapse. So I'd like to think that I'm more ready than they are.
Which I mean, weren't we like feeling some good vibes here not long ago with Brady Singer throwing just an absolute gem tonight? We've seen Velazquez have success, Ragans have success. I mean, weren't you ready to just be captain positive coming into this?
I mean, an hour ago, I was ready to throw out our script for what we're going to talk about and just make this the Brady Singer show. And now it's the Royals can make even a Brady Singer no-hit bid into the seventh inning into a loss show. So insert Buddy Bell quote here.
Yeah. All right. What are your thoughts about the performance we saw from Brady Singer, where he sits right now with the team?
So, I mean, today was, the good and the bad. And I think tonight's start puts an exclamation point on the fact that since about the middle of May, Brady Singer has been kind of vintage Brady Singer. And I mean that as a compliment, but he just got off to such a bad start that his cumulative stats were terrible up until tonight. Tonight, it was the first time I think all season he got an ERA under 5. But if you take out the first 7 starts or so, his ERA is in the low 3s. He's got a strikeout to walk ratio of at least 3-1, maybe close to 4-1. It's basically, he has replicated last season's breakout performance statistically after early May. And if you write that off as, April was basically his spring training, then we need to give him credit for, following up on last season's results. And I think he is definitely, if nothing else, I think he has definitely restored pretty much all of his trade value as a commodity. The bad thing is, what we saw today. The bad side of it was he only threw, according to my adding it up, 3 changeups the whole night. And out of he ended up with 106 pitches. What's frustrating is the first changeup, he got a swing on a pitch out of the strike zone. Contact was made, but it was an out. His second changeup, also out of the strike zone, a swing and an out. His third changeup came in the 7th inning. So now he only threw 2 changeups the first 2 times through the lineup, and he was able to succeed just fine. But if you want to pitch 3 times through a lineup, you've got to throw 3 pitches, if not 4. There's a lot of data that says that the pitchers who avoid the third time through the lineup penalty the most are the ones who mix up their pitches the most. So the third time through the lineup, okay, this is the time to start working that changeup in more. And I think it was Cal Raleigh he got he faced with 1 out in the 7th inning, 2-2 pitch, threw his third and final changeup of the game, a beautiful changeup, down and away, got a swing and a miss, strike 3. He got 2 strikes on the next batter. He threw a slider. It was pulled to right field for a single. I'm hoping, if nothing else, the positive followed by negative reinforcement of throwing a changeup for strike 3 and then throwing a slider in the same situation and having your no-hitter taken away from you with 7 outs to go. I'm hoping that will be getting another lesson for Brady Singer in you've got to throw the changeup more. You've definitely got to throw it more the third time through the lineup. It is to his credit that he is as successful as he is throwing sinkers and sliders 95% of the time. He's got to start throwing them 90% of the time, or maybe 85% of the time. And I think he can be even better. So again, both poles of the Brady Singer experience.
Is it time for the Royals to be this offseason locking him up? Or have you seen enough? Curtis had a stat, and it'll get even better with tonight's performance, where his ERA was down to 3.70 something since like May 11th. I mean, he's actually been pitching very well for a long time. It was just so bad early on that it's taken him forever to dig out of it. Are you ready to say that the Royals need to be doing whatever it takes to lock him up?
Not necessarily. But let's put it this way. I think the Royals need to do whatever it takes this offseason to either lock him up or trade him. The days of letting a guy like this leak value as they approach free agency and you get neither the security of a long-term contract nor the value of an immense prospect haul that comes from trading them while they still have value and wasting his best years on a bad team. That is what has to go. That's what has to go away. Not just with him, but Bobby Witt as well. If you're not going to win for the next two years, at least probably 3 years, either you got to guarantee those guys will be on the team after that 3-year period is over, or you got to trade them. So that's what the Royals, they need to fish or cut bait. They need to, do something or get off the pot. They have to pick a lane and stick with it for both of those guys.
I think both being Singer and Bobby Witt, or Singer and
Bobby Witt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get a sense that the new MO from the Royals is going to be after the 4th year, right? Which for Singer would be next year. That they're going to go that far, and then if not, that they feel like the time to really get things done is, when there's still 2 years of team control that they can trade, that they still have maximum value. I will point out that a week ago Friday, was that before? That was after we last talked. John Sherman came on my show, and one of the things he said was, I came on my radio show, by the way. One of the things he said was, we've got to do a better job of trading guys at their highest value, at their peak value. It's something we're going to have to do. And he acknowledged it. And I think, and listen, I've had conversations with folks down there at the baseball side acknowledges that as well. They're aware of it. But I think, when the owner says it, it's like, okay, there's an expectation here. It's not just a want out of the front office. And if we don't get it done, really, there's no ramifications. I mean, when the owner says that publicly, it means there'll be ramifications if you find yourself dealing off Adalberto Mondesi, a guy that would have brought a lot back at one point that you end up getting, a refurbished reliever for. Like, that's not going to exist. I will say at least Adalberto Mondesi has done nothing this year either. But we know at one point he would have brought back a lot more, and that's what the Royals have to figure out. And that's the thing. Like, I think Bobby Witt Jr., who now, as we sit here, is sitting at 277, 318, 492. He is now over 800 on the OPS, 810 on the OPS, the on base 318. Doing everything now for this ball club. Excellent defense. You want to get him signed. I think the question is, what is he worth? Right? And will the Royals give him what he's worth? I think Brady Singer's the easier one, isn't it? I mean, if you want to sign him, if he asks for astronomical demands, okay, you walk. But I don't know, how much do you think Brady Singer asks? Like, I think the problem with Bobby Witt Jr. is, I think he sees himself getting to free agency at age 27 and says, why would I give that away now? Right? Like, I'm becoming one of the best players in baseball. So all I got to do, I just got to play this out, and I'll get the big mega contract. The Royals are going to have to come forward with a really big number. They're going to want age 28, 29, maybe 30, all rolled into a new deal. I see that being harder, right? I see Singer as being the easier one to get done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always easier to get the non-superstar, player signed to a long-term deal. And by the way, if either or both of us appear distracted, it's because the Royals are rallying in the bottom of the ninth here. We're not used to actually
6-6.
doing a podcast while the Royals play. This game is starting.
We definitely didn't expect a rally.
Well, I will say the last time they almost.
What is now a walk-off win? So
your feed is a few seconds ahead of mine. So this reminds me though of the Bobby Witt walk-off grand slam not long.
Oh, this is an oily one. Wait till you see it.
Oh well, that's hey. I mean, it that's on the Mariners for not expecting that. Like, you basically should have your entire infield 40 feet away. So good on the Royals. They don't do very many things well, but Dairon Blanco's squeeze bunts is definitely something they do well. So good for them for leaning on what they do. And they just got
you will now take back all the negative things you said about this ball club for blood. They just did it for dramatic purposes.
Tonight's game was a complete referendum on what I think about the Royals front office.
Well, it
all changed in the last 30 seconds.
Let's talk about this game because just a little bit more, because Chris said it. By the way, I love this one. He said this: Mariners bullpen, hold my beer. I do like that, but back up here, let me find it, because Chris had a good point. He said, where was he? I think it was Chris. Maybe I'm giving credit to Chris, and it was somebody else. Here it is. Yeah, it was Chris. He said, this is not a game worth agonizing over if they lose. Singer was nails and should not have been put out for the 8th. Another stellar night for Bobby Witt Jr. I'm in agreement. And let me tell you, like, I'm positive on this. Is this franchise going back to the World Series in the next couple of years? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they're that close. I think they're still further. But I'm looking at a ball club that one showed some – I don't care. The bullpen has been imploded for good reason.
Well, right? For the best of reasons, because you traded those guys, right? So
any game that comes down, like if anything, if there's any frustration, it's that, like, there were deals on the table for Carlos Hernandez, and I get the idea he's the guy that they were willing to move, but they didn't want it, and the team kept kind of hemming and hawing, and they held their ground. The comments that were made by JJ Picollo, I think that was about Carlos Hernandez. I don't know.
So not Brady Singer, you don't think?
I don't think it was Singer. I think, but I'll keep digging.
That's an interesting point. And if there's one thing we've ever learned that the Royals have at least under Dayton Moore never followed, it's you talk about what John Sherman said on your show. It goes triply so for relievers. You always trade a reliever at the peak of value, and they didn't trade Carlos Hernandez, but at least they traded Scott Barlow. I don't know if you've noticed what Scott Barlow has done since he joined the Padres. Once again, I said it on our last show. Thank you, AJ Preller, for overpaying for a reliever yet again. It's not complete payback for the Trevor Cahill trade, but I'll take it for now.
Yeah.
But the Carlos Hernandez, he hopefully will. He has plenty of time to rebound. Like, yes. Even if he struggles the rest of the season, he's not, a free agent in a year. But the point you're making is valid, which is like we can make fun of them if they had lost today. But if they had lost because they were trying to close out a game with Austin Cox and Nick Whitgren, that's not a big deal. That they did that on purpose.
Yes.
Because they traded Aroldis Chapman and Scott Barlow and Jose Cuas even. I mean, they traded half of their opening day bullpen. That's okay.
Yeah, I think, and first of all, I want to remind everybody we're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, serving the greater Kansas City area, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Listen, we had beautiful weather as we sit here today. You might be catching us when we get back to 100 later on if you're in the Kansas City area, but we were at 75 for a high today. Cool weather's coming, so get that seal coating done on any of your parking lots that need some work now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. If your business needs to have it done on the weekends, go to GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. It's GannAsphalt.com. Blowing a game late with a bullpen that they've traded off their best pieces, don't care. I don't care. In fact, I don't even want them to win. I don't want to be watching and they need to be in the 3 worst records so that they've got their best chance to maximize their draft pick. That's absolutely what I want. But I want to see progress where it counts. And I think we've seen that. Bobby Witt Jr. playing well. We're talking about Brady Singer. Cole Ragans, we're going to get to in a minute. I even think his last outing, which he gave up 5 runs in 5 innings, was a good sign if it's how he's going to pitch when he's having a tough day. There's a lot to like. MJ Melendez went on a little hot streak that included power, not just, some base hits. So that was, encouraging. Michael Garcia continues to hit. He's now 288, 334, 386.
Longest hitting streak by a rookie in Royals history. I mean, that's a gimmick, but I mean, it for once, it's nice to hear a positive stat about the Royals that they're doing this year that doesn't involve stolen bases. Because if you notice, anytime the Royals do something historic, just pay attention to how often it involves a stolen base. Yes, the Royals are great at stolen bases, but that's not the statistic you want to be setting. I want them to be setting like home run records. You know what the Braves are doing? Most home runs, most runs in an inning. I don't care about stolen bases. So most, longest hitting streak by a rookie, 16 games, nothing to sneeze at there.
Yeah, no doubt. And those are the things. And I think important as well is I think there's reason to think, we talked about the trades. The returns on the trades were different than what Dayton Moore trades looked like, right? They were things that were more modern in their approach to what they got back. And the fact that we're seeing instant results out of Cole Ragans, in some ways, and Velazquez, in some ways, I'm a little bit nervous that we want guys that are close to the big leagues. Look, see, this is how you do it. I definitely don't want them just taking guys that are, in AAA. I want players lower down because that's where the bigger returns are going to be. So I do want to see some of the guys that are far away have success, and some of them are. By the way, the kid that came with Ragans has got like a giant OPS and everything. It's miles away from getting to the big leagues.
Right.
But
well, you want to hear if you want the other side of yes, it's a good thing that the Royals, the main guy they got for Aroldis Chapman, Cole Ragans, who twice had Tommy John surgery and already lost his rookie eligibility and not a prospect, et cetera, suddenly looks like a fixture in the rotation. But we're worried that they're going to only trade for quadruple A players in the future, right? So let's look at the other side of that though. Ryan Yarbrough. Right, they traded for Devin Mann, who was a close to the majors guy, right, and has struggled since joining the organization in AAA. It's 9 games, whatever. But remember, they took a 19-year-old lottery ticket by the name of Derlin Figueroa in that trade. 19 years old in rookie ball, and a corner outfielder. So he's got a rake to make us happy. And when we made the trade, he was hitting 237, but with a good OBP for the Dodgers. Arizona Complex League. Since joining the Royals, he is hitting 650. He's 13 for 20 with 7 doubles and a homer. I mean, it's 20 at-bats, but you'd be hard-pressed to find any 20 at-bat stretch by any minor leaguer in the Royal system all year where they hit 650 and had 8 extra base hits, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. His season numbers, he was hitting 237 a week ago. He's hitting 310 for the season with a 427 OBP and a 513 slug. So we can point out the victories at the major league level, but let's make sure to give the Royals front office credit for the Derlin Figueroa trade right now, because those are the kind of lottery tickets. You only have to hit on 1 or 2 of those, You mentioned Ronnie Cabrera, the second guy they got in the Chapman trade, who is still in the Dominican, but like Derlin Figueroa had a hell of a week since joining the organization. That's the sort of thing that makes my eyes go, did the Royals see something in this kid and immediately made it some sort of change? Because he's not just like, if it were 13 for 20 and they were all singles, I'd say, okay, he's just hitting a bunch of ground balls with eyes. You don't have 7 doubles and a homer and 20 at bats without hitting the ball hard. So yes, the early returns of this trade deadline are definitely positive.
Yeah, and that gives you a reason as a fan base, as an ownership group, to think that your fan base can have confidence in what they're doing and where they're going. It may not be coming together as quickly as they wanted to, maybe as quickly as they sold it coming into this season, but it's going in the right direction. I mean, I think for the first time, there's enough things to point to that you can say, yeah, the arrow's pointing up.
Yeah, I think they are making moves in the right direction, at least, which is maybe damning with faint praise. But when you consider this is year 6 of a rebuild and their winning percentage has dropped basically 3 years in a row. If I'm remembering correctly, I mean, the pandemic year, they were on pace to win like 74 games or so. And they were about the same in 2021. And then they fell to 97 losses last year and now on pace for 110 still this year. Like, if you're in a pit, the first thing you do is stop digging. And they've been digging a deeper pit for 3 years in a row, inexplicably. Meanwhile, the farm system rating has also gone down basically 3 years in a row to, I think after all the trades they made, they now rank maybe 28th out of 30 teams. They moved up a slot because they acquired some prospects at the deadline and, they had the 8th pick in the draft. But they're heading in the right direction. They have such a long way to go. So to get to the final topic of the evening, have I changed my mind about the Royals front office? This is a good time to wrap that in because here's where I stand right now. I think that they have made some smart moves. We talked about the Nicky Lopez deal being kind of like the absolute nadir of like what the perception of the Royals front office was. Trading for a guy who could have been available on waivers the week before. And by the way, I don't know if you've noticed. I think it's just funny, but Nicky Lopez today, 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs. The first player in the history of baseball to have 7 hits and 8 RBIs in his first 2 starts with a team. Remember I talked about what might happen when Kevin Seitzer got his hands on Nicky Lopez? Are we seeing maybe what Kevin Seitzer could do with Nicky Lopez? Maybe it's a fluke, but it's a hell of a 2-game fluke. His first game with the Braves, he had 5 RBIs. He never had 5 RBIs in a game with the Royals. And if RBIs are a useless stat, well, he had 8 total bases in that game. He never had 8 total bases in a game with the Royals. Anyway, putting the Nicky Lopez trade aside, though, everything else that JJ did at the deadline made sense and has so far borne at least a little bit of fruit. Throw the Aroldis Chapman trade, which was made a month earlier, into that definitely. The Cole Ray, that right now that looks like the smartest thing he's done all season. So there are green shoots here. There are signs that maybe they're making some smart moves. The draft didn't go the way I would have wanted it to. It's extremely early. You have Blake Mitchell on the list. We should at least point out, we talked about it before, Blake Mitchell, it's in nine games right now. So his sample size is tiny, but he has walked 8 games, 11 walks in 8 games as a pro. As sample sizes go, it's small, but man, I think we can safely say that Blake Mitchell understands the value of plate discipline. Now, he's not actually hitting. He only has 4 hits and 19 at-bats. It's 19 at-bats. I don't care. His strikeout rate is around 29%. I'd like that to be lower. But at least he's showing polish at the plate. Like I made a joke that he's born the same day as Bubba Starling. Bubba Starling was, I don't know, at any point in his career had showed the plate discipline that Blake Mitchell was showing. So this is a very different kind of player. The Royals, I'm actually, if anything, more impressed with their 3rd round pick, Carson Rockefeller, because he was the guy I did not particularly like this pick. Sorry, 2nd round pick, their 3rd pick overall, I believe. Was he? I think he might have been the supplemental 2nd rounder. He, raked in 4 games in rookie ball, but since moving to Columbia to full A ball In 5 games is hitting 368 and has 3 extra base hits already. Early signs there are good. Spencer Nivens, our 5th round pick, who I did like, also got a promotion to full A ball, and has shown some pop. His batting average is low, but he's already got 4 extra base hits. So very early signs from the draft. I'm comfortable with that. Most of their other high picks were the 3 pitchers they took in the first 5 rounds. I've not pitched yet. That's fine. That makes sense. But so there are some green shoots here. But if JJ wants to bring me back into his camp and convince me that he is the man to turn this team around, he is going to have to show me something dramatic this offseason, which is this. You mentioned Brady Singer and Bobby Witt. He has to either sign those guys to long-term deals or trade them. And yes, I mean Bobby Witt.
So let me ask you a question. You fired everybody 2 months ago. I mean, let's do.
I said I'm ready to burn things down and start over. I'm saying if I am John Sherman, it's easy for me to say also, but if I'm John Sherman, if I'm not prepared to make that move, and I get it, you want to give this guy a full chance. It's easy for me to say because I didn't hire him in the first place. But John Sherman hired JJ Picollo last August. It probably wouldn't be fair from just an interpersonal standpoint to fire a guy you've given 1 year to. You know, I would argue that the mistake was made last year. But if you're going to commit to that, I understand if you're John Sherman, you want to give this guy at least more of an opportunity to show himself. But if I'm John Sherman, I go to my general manager and say, look, you have to acknowledge that we are not going to win next year and the year before. So you have to stop making moves that are designed to make incremental improvements a year from now or even 2 years from now.
I mean, listen, that's the debate that's going on in the chat room right now. Again, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can be a part of it. And, you know, Bart was saying that, you know, they're just doing everything they can to try to be a little bit better, a 73 win team next year. Other people pointed out, listen, a lot of these guys aren't anywhere near coming to the big leagues. You just went through a bunch of them. We're talking about promotions to A-ball. They're not coming next year to help out. So I do think that there is no way you can look at the moves and say everything was based upon just being a little bit better next year. I think that's unfair. My point about bringing up where you said burn it all to the ground, let it all go. You did all that before the trade deadline. You're saying, and now it's, well, if you don't sign, what if you know, the going rate on a guy like Bobby Witt Jr. would be, you were pointing out the Wander Franco deal. What if he wants $400 million to sign? Then it's not, but you don't have to trade him now. I mean,
but I'm saying, you're right. You don't have to. And that's my point.
I know, but let me finish.
Okay.
Stop attacking the minutia and let me get to the point. And that is, so you keep laying out this, well, it's all got to be burnt down. And now we'll know there's a scenario where, you know, but he's either got to sign him or he's got to trade him. No, that's wrong. I mean, that's completely wrong. And that's basically, if you were the owner and you told your general manager, you're handcuffing him. You're handcuffing him and saying, crap or get off the pot today, when you still have 3 more years of control with Brady Singer and 4 more years of control with Bobby Witt Jr. And I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to lose value over the course of the next, 10 months till we get to 11 months till we get to the next trade deadline? I
think he can. I think he will. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
If you trade him, you mentioned the 4-year thing. That's when they traded Zach Greinke, right? Like, and look, that is the sort of the buy the book. They
traded him at the 4.5. I don't think that
Greinke. Well, I mean, he had they traded him in the offseason. I wouldn't say that's 4.5. Like, they had 2 years. Right. Yeah, 2 years of club control. Like, it's probably better to look at how much are you giving up.
You're right. My mistake. Yes.
So if there's a small market, like Bible for small market teams, how do you run? It probably says in there, you know, if you have a superstar who refuses to sign an extension, trade him 2 years before he's a free agent to maximize the value. That's what all small market teams do. But what if you trade him with 3? What if you trade him with 4? I'll tell you what, if you put Bobby Witt Jr. on the trade market this winter, you are doing something essentially unprecedented in the era of free agency. I'm not going to go back to like Babe Ruth being sold, you know, for money so that the owner can put on a Broadway play. But in the free agency era, I'm pretty confident I can say there has never been a player in Bobby Witt's position, an emergent superstar. And 2 months ago, you could say, well, if the Royals put him out there, everyone's gonna be like, why are they putting him out there? But he has proven himself now.
I think you are so premature and so reactionary on so many conclusions you come to. He just crested above 800 tonight.
Do you think if the Royals this winter, assuming he doesn't collapse or get injured in the next 2 months, if the Royals put him, make it a known to the other 29 teams, Bobby Witt is available and we are inclined to trade him for the best offer, do you think or that they will not get like the biggest trade hauls of prospects ever offered?
I think the general public thinks that there are 26 teams offering whatever somebody wants all the time, and I think it's a load of crap. Having had conversations with people, listen, and I think anybody who's played fantasy baseball, fantasy football, you get in a league with 10, 12 guys, there's 2 or 3 guys you'll make a trade with because 8 of them are jackasses, and it's no different in the big leagues.
I mean, it's a little bit different. I've dealt with some fantasy guys who couldn't tie their shoes. And that's the
same thing. Listen, I'm going to tell you, every GM I've ever talked to will eventually tell me there's no point in talking to that team. It is a complete waste of time.
Sure, there's a couple.
But the idea that, would people be interested? Yes, but for what it would take, no. You're going to get down to maybe a couple of teams.
You only need one. You only need one. But here's the thing: you're talking.
I think you need
23. Okay, you're playing 2.
I object with you with that whole premise.
You need at least 5. 2. You will have 5 guaranteed. A 23-year-old shortstop who has the ability to play center field if you really want him to, who can run like the wind, hit for power, has never had a serious injury, And here's the thing, you're getting 4 years of control. The first one, he's still not even arbitration eligible. So the money savings and the club control, the value of a player like that. And look, if that happens, it will be, like I said, almost unprecedented because no team wants to take the PR hit. But look at the alternative. The Royals keep him. He has a great year next year. They win 73 games. Okay. They keep him another year. Frankly, 73 games is the upside. They're not. I'd be shocked if they win 73 games next year. Frankly, it's very unusual to go from 110 losses to within sniffing distance of 500. I would say in 2 years, 73 is a good option. So the next 2 years, they win around 73 games each year. Let's give them that. Now you're at that 4-year mark where there are 2 years left. That's the moment you trade him. But he's lost half his value. Why? Why not? Now, if you can sign him to a long-term deal. But when I say that, trade him or sign him, I don't think they can sign him.
So what are you wanting back?
They would have done it 18 months ago.
What are you wanting back? Because here,
4 top 100 prospects and stuff.
The Juan Soto trades the comp. Yeah. His on-base percentage is 100 points lower than Juan Soto's.
Soto's a bad defensive corner outfielder. The value difference between the two is not that big. Soto was probably a better player, but Soto, I think, only had 2.5 years of club control. That's the other thing. Bobby Witt would I think exceed Juan Soto as the biggest single value in a player that's put on a trade market in certainly in the 21st century and maybe well before.
So if you're not on the same page on a long-term deal now, you couldn't possibly be on the same page next year.
Basically, yeah.
Leave it. There's no way. With 4 more years of control, at no point could the Royals and Bobby Witt Jr. ever agree. If they can't agree right now, that's it.
Well,
done. He's got to go. I mean, that's how.
If he's not going to sign this winter, why wouldn't he? It's because of the money, or is it because of the team, or it's because he's only 4 years away from controlling his destiny? All of those things are going to be worse next year. He's going to be closer to free agency. He's going to be making more money.
There's so many reasons why they wouldn't be on the same page. Because the Royals are a small market team, and if you make a bad sign, right? If you go in on a guy and check the on-base percentages right now, he's not that far ahead of Adalberto Mondesi. Okay, so I know, I love the thing. 3 months ago, he couldn't play anything, and now he's Juan Soto.
Where is he on the games played compared to
unbelievable juxtaposition that happens with you over the course of one season is, and you're the math guy.
It's not the OBP I'm comparing with Juan Soto. It's the value. They're two different things.
Okay, but I'm telling you that for a guy, if you're the Royals, what do you want to give him? What's the contract you want to give him?
The contract I wanted to give him was the contract I wanted to give him 2 years ago was like, what, 10 years, 150 million.
And he wouldn't take it. I can tell you the conversations were had, and he would not take it because he's smart and he knows.
I think he's smart enough not to do it now, because now, what would it be? 10 years. I don't even think 10 years and 250 would do it. I think you would have to start with the number 3.
And I don't think he's proven that he's
maybe not, and that's why I think a trade might actually be the best thing for everybody.
Unless in a year from now he proves that he is worth 3, and the Royals give him that. Why wouldn't that be?
Because if he proves that, he's going to want 4 next year. He's going to be 20 at the end of next season. He'll be 24 and a half, and he'll be 2 years away, 3 years away from free agency. Yeah, I think he's going to want 4. I mean, let's see what show he gets this winter. But yeah, I think next year, if he builds on the season, I'm not saying he's dramatically better, but if he does all of next year what he's done since like mid-May of this year,
why would you think he's going to do that? Like, why would you pay him like he's going to do that when he is all of what he has been, which is not, and even last year, he tailed off in September last year. Like, that's what I don't get. Like, I think it's erroneous on your part that you have all these conclusions. Like I said, you were firing everybody like 2 months ago, and now you're admitting, oh, they actually did a good job at the deadline. You didn't even need to see him get to the deadline, which was ridiculous. I'll be honest with you. They
were on pace. They're still on pace to lose 110 games.
Let me finish. Because again, your whole frustration is that you were dumb enough, as was I, to pick them to win 77 games. So in your mind, this is where we differ. In your mind, they should have been a 77-win team because the great Rany Jazayerli picked them to win 77 games. And in reality, you screwed up. I screwed up. Maybe they screwed up. Maybe not. Maybe they just did what a good PR firm would do, sell their fans on, look, here it comes. And privately, behind closed doors, they're like, we're a long way away, guys. Okay, well, we're not going to tell everybody. Let me finish.
All right.
So, and they're not going to sell everybody on that. So the whole concept that the idea that it's wrecked because they're going to lose a lot of games, they're a bad team with a general manager who just got into this position, who now, as we've seen him actually get to the big mile markers, has proven he's going to do things differently. Is J.J. Picollo going to be a general manager for 10 years? Probably not. It's a small market team. It's really hard to do. But has J.J. Picollo, since he's been in charge, changed things? Yes. He brought in people from all 3 of the most successful teams for that play small market baseball. We're seeing some results from that. He went about it totally different at the trade deadline. We're seeing results on that. And now he's being given this artificial, just as the Royals' foolish fake trophies for stolen base records or how many pitchers they promoted in 1 year are asinine. They're worthless. It's also worthless to put fake deadlines on sign or trade this offseason when you have this valuable commodity. Get it right? They have to get it right with Bobby Witt Jr. Whether that's signing him or trading him, they have to get it right. And I think it's impossible to say that conclusion has to be reached in the offseason after his second season. The first time, and who knows, he may finish with 760 OPS before it's all said and done. Like I said, he didn't have a great September last year, and now he just gets above 800, and we're ready to say he's the equivalent of trading Juan Soto is preposterous.
I disagree. I think, there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack there, but basically, first off, I think that if you pull major league teams now, and I don't think it's matter his OPS, his performance. Like, the reason why everyone thinks that this is real, I'm reading articles on MLB.com and figure out everywhere it's like the Bobby Witt breakout is here, is because people have been expecting this since he was the second pick in the draft out of high school. And the fact that he's so young, like, if you pull teams right now, what would you give up for Bobby Witt? I think you would right now get Juan Soto-sized offers and more.
Okay, so let me understand.
Right this very moment, his OPS is over 800. Sell. That's not what I'm saying.
Let me understand this. I want to be clear. You're not saying it's all about OPS. It's about his value. His value is Juan Soto-esque. And what you're wanting is the kind of return that the Nationals got for Juan Soto, right?
I think you could get. I think that's the opening bid.
That's the opening bid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Juan Soto, 2 years into his career, had a 937 OPS. He had a 403 on base and a 535 slug. That is not the numbers that Bobby Witt Jr. Possesses right now. And I think these are. I think you're rooting for your prediction. You're creating impossible expectations to come back and be like, well, they ruined it. They botched it. I think it's asinine.
I wish I was that devious. Right? Look, the big difference is 4 years versus 2.5. I mean, let's not ignore that part of it. I'm not saying he's as good as Juan Soto was at the moment of that trade, but 4 years of
I don't understand how in your mind you think other teams are going to give you value for a guy who has a 755 career OPS right now. The same value for a guy that's OPS at the end of his first 2 years was almost 200 points higher. Okay.
I'll tell you.
You're the math guy, and
yes, and here's what the math says: Bobby Witt, going into today's game, a game in which he went 4 for 5, I believe, 4 for 5, an inside the park home run, clutch single leading off the bottom of the ninth. The
argument is not whether he's good.
Let me finish. 3.4 wins above replacement. All right, coming into tonight's game, when Juan Soto was traded, he had 3.8 wins above replacement. Bobby Witt had played about 10% more games. Soto had about 10% more WAR. So it's like basically Witt is about Soto's about 20% better at that moment in time. They're about the same age, right? So that's the thing. The crazy thing about Soto is he came up at age 19. But skill sets matter, and on base ability tends to peak. You know, for a guy who comes up whose value is entirely in his on-base ability and power, but not in his defense, those players tend not to age into their late 20s and early 30s quite as well. Soto may be an outlier in that regard, but the guy who's like one of the fastest players in the game and also has tremendous power and also has tremendous, this year now has fixed his defensive issues. Like, it's not just that he's playing good defense, it's that he went from playing terrible defense to good defense, that ability to make adjustments. These are all things that teams are going to factor when they look at Bobby Witt. And I think they look at Bobby Witt. He's not Juan Soto. He's not close to Juan Soto exactly in terms of day-to-day value, but 4 seasons, the first of which at league minimum salary, and the following year, even as a first-time player, even if he's a superstar, he might make $8 to $10 million. Whereas Soto's making, let's see, what is he making this year? $23 million. He was making 17 last year, 23. So you're getting 2 extra years at a huge discount. I think the value of that guy will be at least what Juan Soto brought.
Who's the team that has 4 top 100 prospects, since that's your asking price?
I mean, I can't say I've researched the farm systems.
That's a 4, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
And you think that there are dozens of teams that have this ammunition.
Yes. 3 dozen teams, Soren, who I'll tell you, who would be an amazing fit. The problem is they almost have too many infield, but the Orioles certainly have the farm system. And for them you put a superstar like him in, right there between Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holliday. The problem is that they might have the greatest defensive infield in history, because one of those guys are going to have to play second base, and at some point they're going to have to. Why
would they trade for him? Why would they give you all of that?
Because
they have a guy who's already hitting for more power at the big league level, and they got a guy who's the number 1 prospect in baseball at the minor league level. Why would they make that move?
Gild the Louis,
and they're already in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, you can always have more. You asked me to throw out a team as a great farm system. Here's the thing: a trade like this, go back to Zach Greinke. What team is going to give us 4 prospects that we're going to get? Nobody saw the Brewers coming because
they didn't get 4
give up
top
prospects.
100 prospects. Alcides Escobar had fallen off the list.
Exactly.
Lorenzo Cain was never on the list.
And that's my point.
They
Is that it was a really good deal. It was turned out into an amazing deal, but I thought at the time, and I said so on your show, I think it was a good trade. And I liked it because you can find, it doesn't have to be a guy, a technical prospect. So it could be a team that's brought up a guy who has a very solid rookie season, who's really young, is no longer a prospect, but is not a superstar. So they'll make him one of the 4 guys that you get in the deal.
I just want to be clear, because it's easy to, and listen, and it's unfair. I'm going to be honest. It's unfair to tell Rany, give me the teams. And Rany, I know what he's going to do for 7 days. He's going to go research, and he's going to come back and be like, these are the 6 teams.
Yeah,
I know how
it works. Some time. I'm still recovering from this vacation.
I know.
Yeah, but don't tempt me, Soren.
I want to be crystal clear. It's absolutely unfair for me to put Rany on the spot with that. But I want to point out, I mean, think about it. The Baltimore Orioles, they are a team that could do it because they have 5 top 100 prospects. Jackson Holiday at 1, Colton Cowser 16, Heston, I think it's Kjerstad at 25, Kobe Mayo 32, Dylan Beavers 97. Okay, and they also have, let's give them Connor Norby at 102. We've also got a 113, 123. I'm going off just where I knew I could see a team with prospects list. The Dodgers keep getting mentioned. Let's take a look at the Dodgers. I have not looked. Let's see how many they've got in the top 100. The Dodgers, DePaulo 24, Stone 54. That's it, right? Rushing 104. He's in the ballpark. We'd count it. My point is that the Orioles might be the only team that fits that bill. Right? And why would you give up 4 prospects that you presumably believe in for 1 guy when you can control 4 guys and have the same kind of salary ability that you're talking about with Bobby Witt Jr., and you've got 3 years with each one of those guys? Why would you? Why would
the Brewers give up 4 guys for 1 guy? It's because if you're ready to win now,
they didn't give up 4 top 100 guys. And Alcides Escobar was the bane of people's existence the moment they weren't. Alcides Escobar is an anomaly. It's one of the most incredible careers ever because he didn't even have he had like a 290 on base percentage, played good defense, played every day. That whole team, is that really how many podcasts have we done where we're like, well, that was kind of a fluke? And the one thing the Royals can't do is hold up 2015 as their blueprint. And what are you doing? You're putting 2015
out
as
your blueprint. The 2015 ALCS MVP like that, Soren. How dare you? The reason teams do it is because sometimes they trade 4 prospects for Christian Yelich, and the 4 prospects they give up don't turn into anything because they scouted their guys better than the other. So it's a gamble. The Royals, if you do this, the Royals need to be thinking now about. The reason I'm bringing this up now is because you don't wake up on December 15th and say, oh, we're going to do this and make the trade 2 days later. You got to be scouting the hell out of these players now, so that if you have the opportunity to trade for 4 or 5 or 6 prospects, maybe not all top 100 prospects. Maybe you get a couple in the 100 to 200 range. Maybe you get a player who's no longer a prospect. But the point is, you need to scout the hell out of those guys so you pick the right ones, like the Royals, to their credit, did with the Greinke deal. Because remember, they did it originally with the Nationals. It's a good thing they didn't make that trade, but they would have gotten Jordan Zimmerman in that trade. Like, they did pick some. They scouted smartly when it came to finding trade partners for Zach Greinke. Bobby would be something unlike anything we've ever seen. And again, I'm putting it out there now precisely because it's so beyond the realm of normal baseball practice that even you, one of the smartest, most progressive, most forward-thinking radio hosts in the country, and yes, I'm buttering you up right now, Soren, so that you won't keep yelling at me, but even you think I've lost my freaking mind.
I don't. I'm on the open to trade anyone, anytime. I really do. I do my fantasy teams that way. I'm not going to bore anyone with some of the deals I made where everyone says you're an idiot. And 2 years later when I'm winning the championship and they're like, no, okay. Yeah, I see what you're doing. We all have our successes and failures in it. I really am. Every team should be willing to trade anyone at any time. It's about the name on the front of the jersey. Always, all fans care about is winning. The only exception to that rule is quarterbacks in football because there's no other position like
I was literally just about to say Patrick
Patrick
Mahomes
Mahomes.
is exempt from this discussion.
That's it. That's literally the only
They
exemption.
traded Tyreek Hill, and on that day, I was like, I like it. If Patrick Mahomes gets a hangnail, then we have we go to DEFCON 2.
It's highly unlikely, but LeBron in his prime. I'm listening.
Well, especially in a sport where the guy can walk away in 2 years or 3 years anyway. Quarterback in the NFL is different in part because, in theory, he can't leave. Like ultimately, the golden handcuffs are there. And if there was some sort of equivalency in baseball to the franchise tag, and there was a way to keep Bobby Witt around forever, basically force him to sign a long-term deal because you could just franchise him for as long as you wanted to, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It's precisely because no matter how good he is, no matter how much of a game changer he is, like Shohei, look, the Angels never traded Shohei Ohtani. They never traded Mike Trout for that matter, but what are they going to get for not trading Shohei Ohtani? What would they have gotten for trading him 2 years ago?
And I have said that on 810. I've said that on ESPN radio that the mistake of the Angels is how they ever entered last year without an extension for him. Because he is that kind of generational talent. Although he is also going to miss a start. Let's point out there is risk, and we're in uncharted territory for him. But this is I want to be clear about this. I don't disagree with the idea of listening to trades. I don't even disagree with the idea of calling about trying to construct a trade for him. I disagree with the principle that this year is deadline year. The deadline year is after 4 years. 2 years, there's still tons of team control. They have the opportunity. I think anyone who trades for him is gonna want to sign him. I don't think the Rays are going to take him and go, well, we'll have him for 4 years. Anybody who trades for him is going to want to sign him. That limits who's available. There's only a handful of teams that would have the kind of prospects for it. So to me, you put the vibe out there that he can be had and you listen. And if the right deal comes along, I would have no problem with them trading Bobby Witt Jr. But my objection is to the idea that it has to happen in this offseason because that's how you end up with, and I like a lot of these guys I'm about to name, but that's how you end up with, I like the people, right? I love Mark Teahen. I like, and nothing, I just know Mark Teahen better than I know John Buck. I like John Buck. But Mark Teahen, John Buck, and Mike Wood for Carlos Beltran was a product of, we have to do this. And we're taking whatever we can get.
But that was also, we have to do this because, and we haven't prepared ahead of time.
Oh, they had prepared.
Then that's just, we prepared badly because we have
the problem was ownership said, first of all, they had it. Well, the general manager had a deal done with Carlos Beltran, and the president of the team came and said, see if he'll take $1 million less. The player said,
a lot of drama
up your rear end. I'm out. And so then they had to make a trade. So there's a lot that goes into the Beltran deal.
Obviously, the point is, if you're going to trade him, you trade him deliberately. That's what happens when you're, running around with like a chicken with its head cut off because your owner screwed up everything.
And you have an edict that you have to win the next year, and you don't have a catcher and you don't have a third baseman. You only construct a deal that gets you those two positions.
Well, exactly. That's another thing. That all is a piece of this, which is this idea that we need a catcher or third baseman now or next year. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, for JJ to win my confidence back, he has to show he understands you're not going to win next year. So stop making next year's team, no matter, I would rather have another 81 record next year if I knew if it was on purpose. Much like the Orioles, when they sucked, continued to suck after Michael Elias was hired, but you could see what they were doing in the minor leagues. You could see he understood. They didn't suck because they were trying and failed. They were sucking because they were focusing on everything but wins at the major league level. What happened this year that was so dispiriting is that it looked like and maybe I'm foolish for thinking this, but you know what? Then if I'm a fool for thinking the Royals could be competitive this year, then the Royals are fools for making us wait until year 6 of a rebuild and still giving us this steaming pile of turd. So finally admit you're going to be bad.
They listen. You don't like the hire, but they fired the general manager, right? And I'm sorry, but part of what I'm hearing is like Dayton's a problem, and Dayton's gone, and now there's still a problem, right? Like, and that's a big part of the fan base, and they've given him an easy out because JJ was his right-hand guy. I understand all that, but I'm sorry, I cannot subscribe to the fact that you can watch that trade deadline and say that they are committed to like trying to get to 81 wins next year. That they're not committed to building it right. I don't know. You mentioned all the lottery tickets they took. I disagree. Did they go as far down on the farm as often as I would have liked in their trades? No. But I think it's unfair to characterize the trading deadline they just had as all they care about are winning a few more games next year. I object to that.
I'm not saying the trade deadline is a sign of that. They had a good trading deadline, and I'm giving them credit for that, despite the one of the most baffling trades I've ever seen in Nicky Lopez. They had a good trading deadline. If that continues, if that focus on building, building talent and not worrying about the position and not worrying about next year continues, great. What I'm saying is, if you want to show me definitively, without reservation, that you are committed to the long haul and building a contender in 3 years, 4 years even, rather than trying to make tiny gains and keep running on this hamster wheel wherever you're trying to get a little bit better, then there's no better way to do that than to prove to me that you understand that what Bobby Witt gives you over the next 2 years, the value of that is a fraction of what he'll give another team that's actually trying to win and what they'll give you in return. Look, I know it's ballsy. I know it's crazy. I know it's unprecedented. But right now, doing something unprecedented is the single best way JJ Picollo can prove to me that he's the man for this job. It's not an easy job.
And they'll trade him and you'll immediately crap on the trade.
Well, if they trade him for Taylor Hearn, then yes, we're going to have some words. All right.
How about this? How about Hemo says, hey, listen, they only get one more year of draft lottery after this. If 25 sucks, they pick no higher.
Well, that's not true because they didn't get into the lottery this year. This is the one saving grace of not having the top 6 pick this year. It sucks that they didn't draft 5th like they should have in a year where the 5th pick, like Walker Jenkins is the guy, he was the 5th pick. And
what is the lottery? If they finish down there, they just got burnt.
You can't quote unquote win the lottery more than 2 years in a row. To win the lottery means to be there are 6 picks that are in the lottery. So if you get any one of those 6 picks, you have won the lottery for that year. You cannot have a top 6 pick more than 2 years in a row. So the fact that the Royals, I believe it's 2 for small market teams. Large market teams, it's 1. Like literally, I want to say one of the teams that picked in the top 6 of this year. I probably should look up this year's draft. Literally is not eligible next year. They cannot have not just a top 6 pick. They can't have a top 10 pick. It might have been the Rangers, actually. It might have been the Rangers who cannot pick in the top 10. Ranger, maybe it was the Nationals. But I know one of those teams I believe is banned from the top 10 for next year. So the Royals at least can have it 2 years in a row. But then you might as well at that point be a good team or at least mediocre because you're not getting a top 10 pick regardless.
In my opinion, you might as well suck for the next 2 years and make sure you get as high a pick as you can for the next 2 years.
Well, trading Bobby Witt would definitely help you suck.
It would. How about this one? I actually believe they didn't think they could contend because they signed, wait for it, Rany, Jordan Lyles.
I will turn that around and say I actually think they thought they could contend because they spent $17 million on a starting pitcher, which you would not do if you were not trying to contend.
Yeah.
So
I agree with Chris, and I've had conversations. They signed him because they knew they weren't going to contend. They signed him to eat innings and protect people. That's why he was there. And they even had to give Jordan Lyles a second year. That's the other thing about free agency. Like everybody just going to line up to come to Kansas City. They had to give Jordan Lyles a second year.
They didn't have to. They chose to.
Well, anyone who could pitch 100 innings wanted 2 years out of this ball club.
Drink, everyone. It's preferably something non-alcoholic, but drink. Yes, the Jordan Lyles drinking game is it's deadly. So
all right. That's it. That's 60 minutes. You got anything you want to end with after you Bobby Witt goes above 800 and you've got him gone. He better be gone at the end of this year.
Yes, I want to see the headlines now. Rany demands Bobby Witt be axed. That's the story of this. I'm just look. It's August.
Oh, by the way, I do love Brett. Thank you, Brett. Somebody has to facilitate the game. Literally. Thank you.
Look, the Royals are still, after tonight's spiriting win, which was almost a catastrophic loss, but they're still on pace.
There's no such thing as a catastrophic loss at this point in the year for the Royals.
Fine, fair enough. That in itself is the catastrophic loss. That is the organization that we don't care. By August, we just don't care. The Chiefs have hurt me. The Chiefs have crushed me. The Royals have never really crushed me. They've just disappointed me year after year after year. But my point is, after today's game, they're still on pace to lose 110 games. We have to find something to argue about for at least the next 6 weeks till the offseason begins. So me throwing out the trade Bobby Witt this winter, come hell or high water, seemed like a good way to eat 30 minutes of clock.
I object with you doctoring the math. They're on pace for 109 losses now.
Ooh, well then, I take back everything I just said.
Yeah.
We can delete this podcast. Nobody needs to listen to it.
All
right. Yeah. Well, we'll see where they are next week then.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's progress. Hey, give them credit. That's the best pace they've been on in probably 2 months. So,
well, I think if you aren't they since the deadline? Wasn't that or was it the All-Star break? Since the All-Star break, hang on, aren't they like right around 500?
They are 13-16 after today's win. Yeah, not bad. I mean, that includes a 7-game winning streak, but yeah, 13-16. Give them credit for that.
We don't include streaks.
No, I'm just saying.
That's
legit. That's legit. If they keep that pace up the rest of the season, they might only lose like 104, 105 games. Like at this point, I actually think like not setting the team record for losses would constitute some sort of moral victory.
I'm trying to make sure 10-10, 10-12, 10-13, 11-13. Is that what you said?
13-16 since the All-Star break.
13, 12-14, 12-16. Yeah. Okay.
Make sure are you doubting my math? I guess since throwing Bobby Witt out there and claiming he's as valuable as Juan Soto, you're doubting even my ability to
I'm still you will never hear the end of that. Bobby Witt better go on to be really good.
I'm saying his trade value at the end of this year is comparable and possibly slightly more than Juan Soto's. Yes, I believe that. 4 years versus 2.5. That's a lot to overcome.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. All right. We'll see how it plays out. The good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, with us here on the Kaufman Corner. Remember, we're proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they're not a problem anymore if you know Gann. They've been making them disappear since 1994. Why risk accidents and liability in your parking lot? Get your parking lot striped today. That's right, restriped, a brightly striped lot. We'll cut down on accidents and keep your parking lot a lot safer. Remember, they're booking up fast before the weather turns. Get in now. Call Gann at 816-484-3338. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. So for the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, my name is Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.